people talk about AI as being like a computer, so we have like the HAL image, like
Yeah,
it's just like a box maybe with an eye.
absolutely. And I think that box thinking comes from the Darwin
Hmm.
worldview, where in the mechanistic times we basically are compared to a machine or the factory, and we are not a factory, we are not a machine. And if a neural network is learning from our behavior, then that behavior is in that algorithm. And it's not that box which needs 220, 110 volts. It's the information and not the machine. And which brings us to, is Beethoven that, I don't know, 160 pounds of meat, or is it his consciousness, or is it both? Where does Beethoven start? Where does he end? I doubt it. The genius was his finger. Or on the other hand, when I went to the Bonn Beethoven Museum, the most fascinating exhibit there, it's like they have his death masks and pictures and his pianos and the hearing apparatus and like really incredible exhibit. But to me, the best part was, and I took I think 20 pictures of it, was that feather pencil, like that he wrote with this feather, and it is a goose feather, and it's a piece of technology. And they were explaining it had to be the left side of the goose because then it's curved away so a right-handed person can ride well. And without that tool, we wouldn't have those works. And that's a piece of technology which eventually became a pencil, and then a fountain pen and ballpoint pen, and now maybe even a digital pen where you write information in an iPad. And probably Beethoven would use that now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so another one, what are some ways an up-and-coming experimental artist can position themselves wisely in this changing landscape? Specifically, what technologies or trends should they be paying attention to?
That's a very deep question. I think we as composers, I would suggest, I'm not saying we have to, being open and observe the world in a different, probably in a different way, and probably all the amazing composers, it doesn't matter if it was Bach or Beethoven or Björk or Tom York, I think they feel and see the world differently and want to communicate in a new and different way, and music is communication. And so we need to stay open and see what is out there and make our own view on that, and not just follow trends.
Okay.
I think the industry is trying to follow, and let's say if Justin Bieber comes out with a new hit song, then there are probably 200 composers immediately asked to write something like that, and then they wonder why this might not be that big of a hit, because it's such a complex thing to write a hit symphony or a hit song.
Yeah, so maybe don't look for a trend, maybe make one. Yeah.
Yes,
Maybe
and that's not easy.
you don't have to set out
Exactly.
to I'm gonna make a trend, but yeah, like have the mindset that
Hmm.
you're kind of trying to play in your own pond only,
Hmm.
so to speak. Yeah.
Hmm.
I also like that you just kind of said music is communication. That's just a very
Hmm.
clear way to frame it. I
Hmm.
agree. Yeah.
You know, I have to make a note. Uh, I often ask in talks, can you define what is music in one sentence?
Mm.
And without just describing it, can you give me one sentence definition of music. It's a very difficult question,
Yeah,
and
it's hard to. I would. What comes to mind most quickly is it's a geometry pattern, basically.
wow, that's a great answer. Varese said the best. To me, he had the best definition. It's organized sound,
That's a great definition.
which you allude to with the patterns,
Yeah.
and because it is so open, saying organized sound is, it's not about we have to like it or not like it, or it's music, it's notes or this or that. And Frank Zappa was also very open about sound and notes and the interaction of banging with a stick with horsehair on a wood box, and you can reframe this and saying this is a violin, or you can say this makes noise. And yeah, organized sound and how to organize it. Some people have this inner power and energy and creativity and whatever it is, and speak to that. The challenge is, I love what you said, setting a trend, but without wanting to set a trend, because I don't think that Mozart or Beethoven were concerned about setting a trend. It's like they had something to say, and they knew about the genius and working hard on it. And I do believe that the Beatles, as long as they just did it because they had to do it, they had to get those emotions out there, they were fantastic. And I think a lot of artists, once they think of trends and want to set new trends and have this a different intention than communication, then it seems it's losing its voice, pun intended, and also the success, even with millions and millions of dollars behind them. And let's look at like like Michael Jackson. It's like he had all the money, all the PR in his world, and definitely was an incredible composer. And I don't want to get into anything personally, and an amazing performer. But there was a point where it was a downward spiral. And what happened? Why does it happen? Can you lose your gift? Is it that you don't have anything to say, or is your intention changing, or maybe all of above? And I think AI doesn't have that challenge. I think AI's intention is probably always the same. It's the programmer calling something up and we're feeding it. So the ego won't get in the way there.
It doesn't deal. AI doesn't have the problem of attention and intention drifting.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, and then lastly, same question as just before, but for those of us who might start a production studio or a collective of some kind.
Suggestions for for the young people starting something in the business?
Yeah, specifically regarding how AI is going to keep impacting the practice of doing that. Just the landscape changes in general that are happening.
I mean it in the most loving way. Embrace change, and every time there was a big change in the landscape, genius came to light. Well-tempered piano and Bach and changing musical structure, Beethoven, and people were against it in the beginning, or probably a couple of professors said this is wrong and you must not do it. Or this whole thing, Salieri, Mozart, and so many bands which felt strange in the beginning, and luckily had a couple of listeners who enjoyed it, and then it became bigger and bigger. Most of the music, or Bjork or Radiohead, it takes time to develop your voice, and they shifted the whole landscape without wanting it, or Pink Floyd or King Crimson, or
Mhm.
it's like um, they were new, and they embraced that differences, and they had new tools. It's like the electric guitar changed music style. As I mentioned, the movable type changed how we read books and memorize things, and synthesizers changed again music, and well-tempered piano changed it, and in the long run, always for the better. And AI is changing music. I don't know where we will be even in 5 years, because things are changing so rapidly. But I think it's a great opportunity, and make the best with it. And don't be afraid of it. Maybe that's summing it up. Don't be afraid of those new possibilities.